Our next session is Mark Newman from TM Forum, who is going to be looking at digital transformation, yes, but why and what for. And Mark kindly stepped in at short notice as another speaker had to pull out, and hence he's very constrained on time. Mark, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie, and hi everybody. Hopefully I'm going to add some value to this discussion, and I've very deliberately created quite a provocative title for a session here, which is digital transformation, yes, but why and what for. So Chief Analyst TM Forum. So a lot of the research I'm going to present in the next 20 minutes, and hopefully you're seeing my screen. Maybe someone can message me if you're not seeing my screen, but I hope you are. And so a lot of the research that I'm going to be talking you through now is part of a regular annual survey that we produce of the industry at TM Forum called Digital Transformation Tracker. And this is a survey of both operators and vendors, and it does what it says. It looks at the progress of transformation, to real progress and perceptions, I think, around transformation. Well, increasingly perceptions, I think, are quite important, and they are evolving, and that, I think, is why we're looking at the why and what for. So this survey was conducted in the first quarter of 2021, about 160 operator respondents, just over 100 vendor respondents, very global in nature. So I think one point to bear in mind here is that this is not dominated by the tier ones. This truly is a view of operators globally and the status of their transformation programs. I think probably a good place to start is to think about the last 15 months of the world that we've been living in, what we've been living through, and has that changed how we are approaching transformation? And I think we all believe that fundamentally we've seen a greater reliance upon digitization. Indeed, telcos couldn't have functioned, I think, properly without digitization over the last 15 months or so. Where do we think we're going to see acceleration in that process? Well, clearly, the digitization of the customer experience, operations, certainly, I think, are the two prominent areas. I think the customer experience is something that had to happen during the pandemic. Operators increasingly relying on their mobile apps, their portals. People, I think, increasingly becoming more confident about using the portals and mobile apps. And so I think certainly, it's given the industry confidence that digitization is the right thing to do. And I guess the question looking forward is, are we going to continue on this accelerated path towards more digitization as we look to evolve the telco business? So for me, the key finding of our research in the fourth quarter of this year was a question that we asked around, what's the status of your transformation programs? And if you look at the last 4 years, progress has been fairly slow. And you look at this slide and you think, wow, when we look at half the operators globally, more than half. So the very, very early stages of transformation, that's certainly what we saw from 2017 to 2020. When you look at that, the red line for 2021, and that second column down, we're well along the road and reaping significant benefits from transformation. We had a huge leap in the people choosing that answer. So more than 1 in 3 operators saying that they're well along the road and reaping significant benefits. Now, you could dig into this more deeply, but I think going back to this point about perception, this I think is really important. That the last 15 months have given the industry confidence of the need for transformation, and the fact that what's been put in place already is absolutely necessary and is absolutely needed for telecoms operators. Now, I think there's some interesting feedback we got from. We had some free text answers, I guess, in a survey that we did, and there is a discussion, I think, taking place, a worthy discussion, which is, should we be talking about digital transformation at all? Isn't that just a modernization of our current business? And so, one comment back: we don't have a formal digital transformation program. It's in our strategy. I think increasingly it's going to be that. Transformation is just something that you do as part of your overall strategy. It kind of becomes business as usual as operators start to embrace those new capabilities and they see the benefits that it brings. And I think another point here, we're in a continuous cycle of transformation. So this idea of there being a start, a middle, and an end isn't really always the right way of looking at things. I think telcos are constantly looking to modernize, and I think the reason for that constant evolution is very important, because I think all the time we think about transformation as being a multi-year single project, we're setting ourselves up to fail. So transformation is something that we do continuously, pragmatically, important steps and milestones along the way, quick wins, longer term wins. So a big part of that transformation is a shift towards cloud and towards cloud native and hybrid cloud. Again, when we surveyed the industry, 60% of respondents said they want to take a cloud native approach that may not be possible for all workloads. So I think this acceptance that cloud and public cloud is a way to go is gaining momentum rapidly. Obviously, big questions being asked about TCO and return on investment. But I think the fact that we have so many operators now entering into sort of fairly deep strategic partnerships with the public cloud companies and hyperscalers, the fact that many of the traditional BSS, OSS vendors are now committing themselves to cloud native means that we are firmly set on this direction of travel. And I think when we look at CSP's approach, it's going to be mainly one around a hybrid cloud approach. Unless you're a greenfield player, you're not really going to be putting all of your BSS OSS into the public cloud for a very long time. And I think there's going to be quite a relatively long process of prioritization of moving some of the newer applications, customer-facing applications into the cloud first. Some of the more back-end functions are going to take longer to move into the public cloud. So in terms of the drivers of transformation, pretty consistent across the 5 years we've been doing the survey. I think most operators see it as largely being making yourselves an organization more customer facing, taking all of the processes, the operations, the technology, and making it more customer facing. So clearly that's number one. Operational efficiency, and then business agility. So those drivers haven't really changed hugely over that 5-year period. I think they absolutely remain valid, and it's a combination of those, although depending on who you are as an operator and what your strategy is, you may have more of a focus on one of those areas than another, for example. So I want to move on to some of the issues which the title of this presentation alluded to, which is the what and why. And so the way I'm now seeing the industry is that there's a clear path towards digitization. But I think when it comes to digitalization, I think there's still some clarity needed for many telcos. And when you look at the barriers towards transformation, inflexible legacy IT technology seems to be the number one issues I think we're all too familiar with. But this issue of lack of clear aligned vision and goals, cultural organizational issues, these have remained a constant throughout the 4 or 5 years. So we have a situation which is, while on the one hand, we are embracing many of these new working practices, platforms, technologies that sit behind transformation. Are we any clearer as industry about our aligned vision and goals? And I think that has been a question the whole time, but I think it's not going away, and it's certainly an issue for me. And when I think about what telcos are doing, how easy is it for you to prioritize your transformation program if you don't have a clarity around your strategic goals and vision? So this is a question that we've been asking consistently during the 5 years of our survey, which is, what should CSPs aspire to become? So essentially, we give telcos 4 choices. Black choice, best-in-class connectivity provider. If you chose the red option, you're a multi-play operator, multi-service operator. That's kind of the path that many telcos have adopted in the last 5 to 10 years. Then we look at the brown and the greys, and these are sort of the future visions. Are you looking to become a full digital service provider offering a whole range of services? Or are you seeking to become a platform provider? And I appreciate that these choices kind of overlap based on how you interpret them. But I think what is interesting, however, is that when you look at the responses from operators in this most recent survey, there's a fairly even divide between those 4 options. In fact, a very even divide between those first 4 options. So as an industry, as telecoms operators, is our future as enhanced connectivity providers? Are we becoming platform companies? Are we becoming end-to-end solutions providers? Are we trying to do a little bit of each of those? And then I guess another way of looking at this data is, are we seeing these differences of opinion? It could be because on the one hand, we're seeing operators diverging in terms of strategies. Some might be seeking to become platform players, end-to-end service providers. Others might be happy to be connectivity multi-play providers. That could be one reason why we're seeing an even divide between those 4 categories. But the other answer could be that some of the respondents, they're not too sure about which way we're headed. And so my feeling is it's probably more of the latter than the former. And we often talk about, well, there's nothing wrong with being a connectivity provider if you manage your costs properly, if you're lean and mean. But we haven't strategically seen many telcos saying, that's me. I'm happy to be a connectivity player. I'm not aspiring to these new areas. We see most telcos being attracted by the potential of building new services, new capabilities to reduce reliance on the connectivity business. So this would suggest to me that there's some differences of opinion. Interestingly, if you speak to the technology community, the vendor community, if you like, I guess unsurprisingly keener on pushing telcos to more of a platform business, more of a solutions business, rather than remaining connectivity players. So this is a slide I'd like to just spend a few minutes talking through, and this is a pretty important slide in this discussion, which is this is a slide that TM Forum we've been using a lot, and this is actually adapted originally from, I think, from an IBM 2x2 slide, which is, as a telco, as a traditional telco, how do you evolve your business? If you're evolving your business from left to right towards digital telco, you're becoming a more digital version of yourself. You're taking your current business model, your current operational approaches, your network, you're taking your business and you're digitizing as much as you can. But essentially, it's the same value proposition into the market. Another way of thinking about the future business is to become a provider of a digital service provider, whatever that means. But I think part of that means moving into platform capability, potentially an end-to-end service capability. Now, if we look at the top left box here, digital subsidiaries, many telcos have either acquired or have set up subsidiary companies to expand into new lines of business. And we certainly see a growth now of operators setting up new digital subsidiaries to focus on security, cloud, IoT. We saw this before 10 years ago, we're seeing it happen again now. Then there are operators who have simply acquired companies in different areas. So I can think of Verizon expanding into fleet telematics. I can think of SK Telecom expanding into security services. And so whether you are building a subsidiary organically or whether you're acquiring a subsidiary, to what extent is that part of your overall business rather than just being a subsidiary company? And so I think when we think about this trajectory around transformation, I think top right represents digitalization, bottom right is digitization. Where I think the industry is at today is somewhere between a traditional telco becoming a digital telco. How many are committing to become top right? Now, another part to this discussion is the one around business models. And I just caught the turn of the previous discussion, and we talked about connectivity and enhanced connectivity. So the way that we see telcos thinking about these strategic options are, telcos are, when we think about the connectivity business, telcos are largely connectivity providers today. Connectivity as a service is thinking about connectivity in a different way. It's thinking about the connectivity that a specific application or group of applications or an enterprise needs. It's thinking about more customized connectivity. You could call it connectivity as a service, you could call it value-added connectivity. When we think about network slicing, that sits into that discussion as well. And so that's an enhancement of connectivity. What we're not clear about yet is, does that actually in itself generate incremental revenues? Or is that just providing connectivity which is better suited to developers, to enterprises, to applications, and therefore gives you permission, if you like, to start competing in terms of delivering solutions or services to the customer? Then we think about a platform business, and we've been talking for many years about telcos becoming platform businesses. I think we all get what platform are from a technology perspective. From a business perspective, what is a platform? And so you might use a platform to deliver end-to-end solutions, but a platform can be a different sort of business model where telco is maybe orchestrating other players. So I think when we think about this move from traditional telco to digital service provider, we also need to think about the role and the value chain and the business model of the telcos, and where you're going to be happy being connectivity service players, where you want to be a platform player or an end-to-end solution provider. Now, these are not necessarily binary choices. I tend to think that in many cases, telcos might take a view, we want to become a platform player, an end-to-end solutions player in a specific market segment, be it a certain size of company or be it a certain vertical area. But in other areas, you might choose to be a connectivity player. So the reason for my spending a long time on this slide is because these sorts of discussions about who you want to be, what you want your business model to be, we need these discussions so telcos can give a broader context to their transformation programs. And I think this is where, as an industry, this is where we are at the moment, and we're trying to figure all this through. So just a few key takeaways. And apologies, it's been so quick. I can't really do the research justice in 20 minutes, but I hope you found it a little interesting. So transformation, it has accelerated, but we don't know whether that acceleration is going to continue as hopefully things start to get back to normal. My suspicion is that because we have more confidence in the power of digitization, that we will accelerate our process of modernizing our companies. Is digital transformation a given? Do operators need a strategy per se? Should we even be having this conversation? Isn't transformation just part of what you're doing? And I think for many telcos, that probably is the case. For others, not so. Legacy. What are we going to do about it? We could have a whole separate discussion around what you do about legacy if you try to brownfield versus greenfield. There's still, I think, a lack of clarity around. Clarity may be the wrong word, but I think we're seeing operating different approaches around how to overcome legacy, and no clear roadmap emerging. A direction of traveling to the public cloud. Most of the conversations I have around transformation are now around public cloud. but I think it's difficult, it's complex. The return on investment isn't always clear. So I think progress is slow, but it's happening. Enterprise market is where many operators are focused today, but telcos will need to find their own way. And it goes back to the point about which business model you want to adopt. And then CSP is still looking for their North Star. Can transformation really succeed without it? That really, I guess, is the big question, isn't it? Which is, can transformation really succeed without complete clarity and commitment to a North Star? Or can telcos evolve incrementally? There's always going to be some incrementals, but I think really clarity around the North Star, and I think prioritization in the organization and communication of that North Star for the organization is pretty important. So apologies it was rushed, but I hope you found some of that useful. If you want to follow up on that, mnewman@tmforum.org. Thanks for your time today. Nice to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Mark, I have a couple of questions. I'll forward them to you because I know you've got a hard stop now. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Annie. Bye.
Bye. Bye.